and this is the Citizen Sports Weekly for Wednesday, December 1st, 2021. Justin Ritzel. And well, who do we have here? The face looks a little familiar. I haven't seen him in a while. Oh, it's Robert Harding, the new father. Congratulations, Robert, and welcome back.
Well, I thought I'd surprise you guys. I don't think any of us count this as work anyway, so I think I'm in the clear. So here I am, last week of parental leave for me. The big reason I wanted to come on, Bills Patriots on Monday night. Good to be back talking sports with you clowns on a Wednesday afternoon.
And before we get started, speaking of daughters, today is my daughter Kaylee's 20th birthday. So I want to wish her a happy birthday. She's 20. I can't believe she's no longer a teenager. She's basically a legal adult now. Hard to believe that my little girl is now 20. So happy birthday, Key. All right. Yep. Thanks, guys. So we got a couple other topics to talk about before we get to the picks. We'll talk about Max Scherzer. It's official. He is now a New York Met. He took the money and ran. This is going to be like a theme of this show, basically. He signed a 3-year deal with the Mets worth, I don't know, tens of millions of dollars. It's absolutely bonkers when you think about it. And I always see people complain whenever you see one of these big contracts in sports. But how can any guy be justified getting paid that much? And to me, it comes down to basic economics. It's what the market will pay somebody. And if the market is there, then you're going to get paid. It's as simple as that. And obviously the market is there. So good for the Mets. The Mets, I said this on Twitter, the Mets have become the Yankees and the Yankees have become the Mets. Because for years and years, the Mets were the team that, didn't spend money on players and they were like the second fiddle in New York. And now the Mets with new owner Stephen Cohen, who's not afraid to throw the money around and is not afraid to go on Twitter and rankle people and say things. The Mets have become the Yankees. I wouldn't say this is George Steinbrenner 2.0, but obviously Stephen Cohen is very vocal, and I like that as an owner. I think as a fan, you want your team's owner to be involved and to vocalize things and get upset and do things. So I think that's great for the Mets, and I think it's a good signing. We'll see if Scherzer lives up to the contract, but I think it's a signal that the Mets are open for business, that they're looking to move past the Wilpon era and be competitive in the NL East. So, Justin, your thoughts about Max Scherzer signing with the Mets?
Yeah, I mean, I don't blame the Mets one bit for signing Scherzer. He was, obviously one of the big ticket items during free agency this year. He's had an interesting career because we're talking about a guy who's going to go down as one of the best pitchers of this era, of the 2010s. And, he's kind of bounced around a little bit. People forget he was with the Diamondbacks for a couple of years. Went to Detroit for a few years. They had a stacked rotation early 2010s. You go back and look at that. Kind of took a few years to really find his groove. And then obviously he joined the Nationals and became, the best pitcher in baseball. But I've seen some criticism of like how baseball, how is it fair that like Steve Cohen can come out and spend this much money and, other teams are at a competitive disadvantage. I kind of look at it the other way. It's kind of pathetic that there's several teams that Max Scherzer's contract by itself outranks team payroll. I'm trying to look it up, what teams that is. Let's see, Pittsburgh and Baltimore, Seattle, Cleveland. I mean, it's kind of sad as a baseball fan to see these franchises that have great fan bases and they're being outspent by a single signing. And hopefully that'll be something that gets figured out with this inevitable lockout that's about to happen. It is funny that the last couple of years we've watched free agency and you see the guys like Bryce Harper and Manny Machado took until the eve of training or spring training or the regular season to sign. And this year, because of the lockout, everyone is agreeing to contracts right away. So just kind of funny how that uncertainty impacts things.
Well, I mean, obviously there is the have and the have-nots of free agency. I mean, the big names are always going to be signed quickly, most cases, in the big money. And then you have your middle class of free agents, which I think a lot of them are going to be stuck. They're not going to get signed by the beginning of the lockout, and they're going to be stuck waiting till spring training or whenever this whole thing ends. Who knows? It may not end till April for all we know, and that's going to be tough. But no, I understand that. But remember one other thing, Justin. It's not exactly how much money you spend; it's how you spend it. And you talked about the Mariners not having a huge payroll. Remember, this is a team that came within a game or two of the wild card and made a nice trade with the Padres for an outfielder, and have been a little active in free agency. The Mariners are a team on the ascent with young talent. So, you know, if you're not going to spend money, you better spend what you do have wisely, and the Mariners are doing that so far. So, all right, Robert, go ahead. Here's your chance. You've been waiting forever. Spout off.
Well, to quote your new 20-year-old, let Robert talk. This guy, I tell you, he likes to dominate the airwaves, folks. The Scherzer signing, as a Nationals fan, I'm obviously a bit disappointed to see him sign with a rival. But, I think from his perspective and from the team's perspective, it's a smart deal. For the Mets, you lock up one of the best pitchers, as Ritz said, of this era. He still has plenty in the tank. This is a guy that takes care of his body, almost Tom Brady-esque in the way that he approaches preparation and, takes care of himself. So, I think he can still pitch, maybe not to the Cy Young level form, but certainly close to it, and live out the life of this contract as long as he stays healthy. And that hasn't been a problem for him really over the last several years, with the exception of obviously what happened to the playoffs this past season. But, I think, for Scherzer, it makes a lot of sense. He's 37 years old. It's a 3-year deal, I believe. Who knows if he wants to play past 40 or into his 40s. And so this seems like a perfect deal to kind of wrap up your career, make some extra money on the way out, pitch for a team that's clearly in win now mode. Cohen doesn't want to waste any time. He wants to build a winner. And that pairing, him and DeGrom at the top of that rotation, as long as DeGrom stays healthy, that's trouble for opposing teams, and especially in that NL East. So I'm looking forward to this, seeing how it all plays out. Not looking forward to Scherzer facing the Nats potentially a few times a year, but I think it shows that the Mets, these aren't the Wilpon era Mets. The Wilpons were terrible owners. Glad that those, garbage men are out of this league, because, Cohen comes in, and say what you want about him. He wants to invest in that team and build a winner. And, I think that they probably could use a few more pieces, but they certainly have a solid foundation to build on. And we'll see what happens with it. But the Scherzer signing, a great one for the Mets, a great one for Mad Max as well.
Yeah. No, it's going to be interesting to see how the NL East shakes out, because obviously the Braves are coming off the World Series, and you figure maybe the Nationals are going to be a little bit better, but we'll see what happens. It's going to be interesting.
Not holding my breath.
No, we'll see that. So, all right. Well, speaking of big money, we'll continue with this topic, being sports and all. College football. It's crazy what's happened the last few days. It all started Sunday with the tremor that Lincoln Riley was leaving Oklahoma for USC. And then the real earthquake happened on Monday night when it came out that Brian Kelly was leaving Notre Dame for LSU. I mean, look, I'm old enough to remember when Oklahoma and Notre Dame jobs were like, you didn't leave those jobs unless you got fired or retired or went to the NFL. Those were destination jobs. Those were jobs that, we're talking the blue bloods of college football. And now you've got Kelly and Riley leaving for other blue blood programs. It's literally an arms race in college football where, if you don't have a big name coach who can recruit, who can contend for the national championship, making the college football playoff, you're nobody. And I mean, you look at other programs like Texas, which has fallen off the map. Okay. I mean, they've been changing coaches, seems like every year or two. You know, you get a year or two to do something. And if you don't, boom, you're gone. It's crazy what's going on in college football. And from the money standpoint of things, if you've got a lot of rich alums that will kick in the money for buyouts to fire coaches or bring on a big name coach, great. But remember, a lot of these schools are public institutions that use taxpayer money. And if I was a taxpayer in Louisiana, I don't know if I'd be too thrilled with all that money going to get Brian Kelly. And then the other thing is, I mean, karma would be if these guys stink at their new jobs and get canned in a few years, because they're not going to get canned in 1 year. Okay, it's going to be more than 1 year for these guys. But 3 years would be fun to see if these guys aren't big time winners, what's going to happen. So. All right, Robert, you get to go first on our second. I shouldn't say a second on this one. Your thoughts about what's going on in college football?
Yeah, the Lincoln Riley to USC, you know, that hiring, I think that could really give USC a big boost. You know, Riley is, you know, he's built quite an offensive juggernaut at Oklahoma. You know, we've seen the players that have come through there, and he, you know, solid recruiter, obviously. And so I think that he can have success at USC. The Brian Kelly decision doesn't make any sense. And there's really 2 points I want to make here, which is one, you know, I think, you know, in some ways it shows that Notre Dame's lost its luster. You know, we're talking about an era of college football now that's dominated by conferences, and Notre Dame isn't in them. And so Brian Kelly made the decision, and here's where I will defend him. He wants to win a national title, and he doesn't think he can do that at Notre Dame. So he wants to go to a power conference, and he picked the best one, and he's going to a program that just won the national championship a couple years ago and is hungry to get back there. So I think from that standpoint, he made the right decision. Now, how he handled it was piss poor. This guy, you know, 7 a.m. meetings, late night text messages, you know, for all the grief that fans give players who enter the transfer portal or, you know, want to do, you know, various things with, you know, the name, image, and likeness and so on, make a little bit of money. And here's this guy chasing an almost a 9-figure deal in LSU. And, you know, it just doesn't make any sense. And how he handled it was terrible. You know, an embarrassment, really. It seems Notre Dame was caught off guard a little bit by it. They had a hunch that he didn't want to be around, but I think the timing was bad, especially this is a team that could make the college playoffs still. And it's insane that, you know, I think that if the NCAA wasn't so poorly managed, there has to be, you know, similar to the NFL, you know, different hiring windows and that kind of, they need a hiring window. It should not be during the season like this, especially with the college football playoff now. It affects, I think, the competition, quite frankly. And I think it's something that needs to be addressed to prevent these guys from saying in mid to late November, oh, sorry, guys, I know that we have a bowl to prepare for or a college football playoff. I'm chasing money. I'll see you later. I think it's wrong. That part of it needs to be fixed.
Yeah, this is why the players need to be paid. Absolutely. Go ahead, Justin.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of why I have not no problem with it, but less of a problem with this kind of stuff is, you know, it was always a shame, you know, in the past because a coach, you know, he'd be entrenched in these programs. He'd recruit all these kids. These kids would come to these programs expecting to play for, you know, Brian Kelly or Lincoln Riley or Nick Saban. And then the coach on a whim would see a better situation elsewhere and just leave. And then the kids who were expecting to play under this coach are now stuck in that situation with no compensation. If they want to transfer, then they have to sit out a year. So it's nice that the transfer rules have changed and it allows these kids that, you know, they're stuck in a program where they're not going to be playing under a coach they expected to. Well, hey, they can jump ship too. I do think, like, it was, I watched a clip of Lincoln Riley was on the Sports Center with Scott Van Pelt doing an interview, and Van Pelt was kind of asking him, when did this communication start with USC? And Lincoln Riley kind of said one day, and then he backtracked and said, well, actually it was earlier than that. And, you see with these college coaches that there is a bit of, scumminess, for lack of a better word, with how they choose to go about this. And Brian Kelly, I mean, the media, they get their hands on this stuff and it gets reported and it kind of is what it is. But to send a very short, curt message to his players and then call a meeting the following day where you apparently only spoke for 2 minutes and then you leave without really conversing with the Notre Dame kids, you just lose a lot of respect for a guy like that. There's you can't fault anyone for even a coach seeing a better situation and pursuing it. As crazy as it may sound that there'd be a better situation than Notre Dame, but that's his right. But there is a right way to go about it, and there's a wrong way. And at the very least, you should treat the players that you recruited and you brought in and they committed to your program. You should show them respect. And he did not do that. And that's the biggest shame.
The thing Robert mentioned about, Kelly and Notre Dame is not as good as they used to be as a brand, whatever. I mean, look, to me, if I'm a college football coach, to make the college football playoff, Notre Dame to me has the easiest route because they're not in a conference. They don't have to worry about a conference championship game. Okay. Yeah, they play some tough games, but come on, we're also playing Navy every year. Okay. Not exactly look, and Navy's not a bad program. All due respect to Navy, but I mean, realistically, Notre Dame doesn't have to worry about a conference championship, has an automatic bid in if they finish a certain ranking, I believe. So the thing is, Notre Dame gets to the college football playoff, and then of course they lose it. They don't, they've never been, I don't think they've been to the championship game, or maybe they've been one time and they got beat by Alabama. So now the thing is, Kelly goes to the SEC, where guess who he's got to face every year? Nick Saban and Alabama. I mean, look, yes, LSU did beat Alabama a couple of years ago with Orgeron and everything and Joe Burrow, and so it can be done. I get that. But I mean, if you were looking to build a national championship winner, you're going to arguably the toughest conference in the country, where I think it's even more difficult. But who knows? But the thing is, he's 60 years old. He's going to be getting paid almost $10 million a year for the next 10 years. It's a nice little retirement, okay? Because my hunch is when he's done at LSU, whether it's in 3 years or 5 years, or he actually coaches the full 10 years, he's done. This is his golden parachute. He's out of here after that. So way to go. Anything else you guys want? Yeah.
Well, I just want to add, in all likelihood, it won't be his last contract. I'm sure that they'll, that they'll rework it at some point, especially if he has success there. But, one thing I wanted to point out about this is that, the SEC, is the conference in football. There's a reason that Oklahoma and Texas want in on SEC, on the SEC, is because, quite simply, that's where the talent's going. It's not just to Alabama, it's going to Auburn, it's going to Tennessee, Texas A&M, the list goes on. These are the programs where the 5-star and 4-star recruits are going. So, if you're Brian Kelly, not that you're getting any schlubs at Notre Dame, but you have a better chance of getting top tier talent at all of these positions if you're at LSU compared to Notre Dame.
We have breaking news. This is hilarious, but I just got an email from FanDuel. And it says, be the first to bet sports in New York, Christopher. FanDuel Sportsbook is coming to the Empire State. We'll be sending you a notification when the pre-registration period officially opens, so stay tuned for more information. Oh boy, mobile sports betting is coming to New York. Here we go. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. All right. And with that in mind, let's get to the picks. Perfect timing. Nice little lead in, huh? All right. So last week, for those of you scoring at home, well, at least I'm scoring at home. Let's see. We all had good weeks. Justin was 2-2. Good week for him. Robert and myself, 3-1. Very good weeks. And right now, our standings, since Robert's here, we can recap. Yours truly, over 500 for first time in a while, 24-23. I am the leader. Robert, 20-27. And Justin, well, I'm sorry. Yes. 15-32. Ouch. Yeah, it's well, we all have bad years now and then. It happens.
Hey, I got a trophy on my mantle.
Yeah, you do. You do. It's true. Yep. So we got 4 games. My hunch is I went through the games earlier and I did pick the games this week. I really was waffling on some of these, and I have a feeling that I'm going to have a bad week. I smell a 1-3 week coming up. That's my hunch. But
here we go.
We'll see what happens. Robert's going to get back in this thing. Mark my words. All right, our first game, the Los Angeles Chargers at the Cincinnati Bengals. Cincinnati's 3-point favorite. Cincinnati coming off an absolute shellacking of the Steelers. Absolute trouncing of the Steelers. Chargers, I believe what they have. They lost last week, right? I can't remember exactly. I forgot who they were playing or what they did, but they
lost to Denver.
They lose last week.
Yeah, they lost the Broncos.
The Broncos, yeah, that was a bad loss. Yeah, bad loss. Look, recency bias, hot team at home. Yeah, I'm taking the Bengals. It's -3. I think they can cover that. I think they win by a touchdown at least. I'm going with the Bengals to cover -3. Robert, welcome back. Who do you like?
Yeah, this is a fairly easy game for me. I think the Chargers have fallen off a little bit, and I'm impressed with the Bengals. They really took it to Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh, obviously they've had some COVID issues, they've had some injury issues, but Big Ben is not playing well, and that Bengals defense took it to him, and that offense led by Joe Burrow. That kid, certainly is showing that he can play quarterback in this league as well. So I'm taking the Bengals in this one. I think it's it could be potentially a little shootout here, similar to what happened in the Chargers-Steelers game a couple weeks ago. Certainly, both teams have the offensive firepower for it, but I think when it comes down to it, the Bengals have a slightly better defense and slightly more firepower on their side of things.
Justin, who do you got?
Well, this goes against my brand because I've picked against the Bengals all year. And you guys know my love for the Chargers. I bring it up every time we pick one of their games. But it's partly because of the Chargers that I'm in the hole that I'm in. So it's time to say goodbye. I will take the Bengals. I think that their running game is going to gash the Chargers with Joe Mixon. Joe Burrow is having a solid year, not a great year. But as long as he doesn't make mistakes, they tend to win games. So, I thought that Pittsburgh was going to give them a rough game last week, and I was wrong. They crushed Pittsburgh. So I'll take the Bengals here at home to cover the 3.
Yeah. Our next game, the Baltimore Ravens, 4-point favorites on the road at Pittsburgh. As we just mentioned, Pittsburgh got absolutely trounced by the Bengals last week. Baltimore, ugly win against the Browns on Sunday Night Football. I mean, this was not a clinic by any means. So, I'll tell you, Robert, now that you're back, the gut's back too. And, Steelers are at home. It's a division game. I'm even bringing out the Sciria-isms. I think the Steelers were embarrassed last week. And I think Mike Tomlin does not like being embarrassed. I'm not saying Pittsburgh wins the game, but it's 4. That means Baltimore's got to win by 5. I think Pittsburgh can cover that. I'm not saying they're going to win. They could win. But I think the Steelers' defense is going to be the key against Lamar Jackson, who's not completely healthy, in my opinion, coming off a horrible game, by the way. And I like Pittsburgh as the home underdog to cover the -4. Go ahead, Justin.
So you're worried about Lamar Jackson not being completely healthy, but no mention of the corpse that is Ben Roethlisberger.
Well, look, I'm not expecting the Steelers to light up the scoreboard. I think the key is the Steelers' defense, but to be honest with you, but go ahead.
I mean, hey, I thought they were the key last week, and look what happened. They were invisible, with TJ. I think TJ Watt came back at least last week. Minka Fitzpatrick, didn't matter. The Bengals stomped them. And, the Steelers are just, think back 2-3 weeks ago, they tied the Detroit Lions, the winless Detroit Lions. The Steelers could not beat them. So I'm sorry. I think Pittsburgh, they were the last undefeated team last year. They have a lot of talented players. But their quarterback is terrible and holds them back. And their defense has not been the dominant unit that it should be week in and week out. So I have no trust in them. I get it. Lamar Jackson threw 4 interceptions last week. He was terrible too. But this comes down to what quarterback do you trust more? And I think that's a landslide in Lamar Jackson's favor. So I will take the Ravens. And I feel pretty good about it.
Robert?
Yeah, when you look at the Steelers' schedule, the last 4 games, they barely beat the Bears. As Justin mentioned, they tied the Lions. And then that Chargers game, and I really packaged that with the Bengals game, because when you look at the last 8 quarters that the Steelers have played, they've only played 1 good quarter. And that was the 4th quarter against the Chargers when they nearly came back after being down 17 and won that game. Otherwise, the Chargers were taking it to them in that game. And then the Bengals, a week later, really take it to them for the entire game. So, I think that this is a troubling game for the Steelers for a couple of reasons. One, Lamar Jackson's going to want to improve on his performance against the Browns last week. And I think that the Steelers, he can do just that. He can have a good game against them. The Ravens defense loves to blitz. And I think that's trouble for Big Ben. He might be a corpse after this game. The way that the Ravens play defense, it could be a long day for that Steelers offense. I am taking the Ravens to cover in this one. I think they'll win comfortably against the Steelers.
That's going to be interesting. I just my gut feeling. All right. Our next game, the San Francisco 49ers at the Seattle Seahawks. Seahawks are 1-point favorites, which I'm trying to figure out how. Did Vegas watch the game on Monday night against the Washington?
The Niners were 1-point favorites.
That's what I said. I'm sorry. The Niners are 1-point favorites. My bad. All right.
Sure.
Well, anyways, even more. Look, I think the Niners can win by more than 1. Seattle is horrible. They've written off the season. There are going to be massive changes in Seattle. I think anything could happen. Coaching change, quarterback change. I think anything could happen with the Seahawks. This team is sinking like the Titanic. I like the Niners to cover the -1 easily. Go ahead, Justin.
Yeah, I like the Niners too. I think the only reason this is so close is because the Niners are going to be without Deebo Samuel, who's just been a stud this year, not only as a receiver, but he's done a lot of running the ball lately, and he's scoring touchdowns on a weekly basis on the ground. So he's not going to be out this week. My fantasy team weeps because of that news. But listen, I don't see how you can watch the Seahawks offense, which is supposed to be the strength of their team. Watch how they've performed in the weeks that Russell Wilson has returned from his finger injury and have any confidence that they can even get to 20 points. He's been terrible. Yeah. And we don't know if he's just out of sync or if the finger is still bothering him or some combination of both. He did return from, on the early side of kind of what that time frame was from coming back from that injury. We heard about how he was up 19 hours a day rehabbing, which, hey, Russell, maybe you should have gotten a little more sleep. He obviously looks like he could have used it, but I think the Niners are going to win this one handily. Seattle just doesn't have it this year, and it's time for everyone to just admit that. I will say, if there's ever a game where Russell Wilson is going to have a throwback performance, it's probably this week, because the Niners have a really banged up secondary, and the strength of the Seahawks is their 2 receivers. Just comes down to if Russell can get him the ball, which obviously he's really struggled with. So I'll take the Niners, but it wouldn't totally shock me if the Seahawks won, but I wouldn't bet it.
Robert, who do you like?
Yeah, Russell Wilson, having watched, that Packers game and then the Monday night game, he's missed some easy throws, at least easy throws for him, that, you'd think that certainly a quarterback of his caliber could easily make. And I think it comes down to, that finger, is it 100%? How much is it affecting him? Is there a mental aspect to it that, comes into play because he's now making these throws. Maybe he wasn't going, all out, in terms of his recovery, focused on making some of these throws. And now he's, trying to get back into the swing of things in game action. And it hasn't worked out too well. I do think that, in the fourth quarter on that, potential game tying drive that he led, you started to see some of the Russell Wilson of old. But to Ritz's point, this team's a mess. Their running back, Chris Carson's out for the year. Russ can't find a way to get the ball to their best receiver, DK Metcalf. It was inexplicable why, he really didn't have many targets at all in that game Monday night. And then the defense has been hit or miss since the, Legion of Boom era. That was really a staple. And now the defense is, really really comes down to a couple players that are holding it together, I think. So the Niners are a more complete team in my eyes. I think, Jimmy G's a competent enough quarterback to, play a clean game and lead the Niners to victory. I think the defense will be solid. I'm taking them in this one. I think that, they're the winners of the last 4 of the last 5 games. They seem to be getting hot at the right moment. And I'm going to continue to ride them.
All right, our last game. This is why Robert's here, folks. The last game, the best game of the week, arguably. New England Patriots, your first place team in the AFC East, playing the second place Buffalo Bills. The game's in Buffalo. The Bills are 2.5-point favorites. So New England is the hottest team in the NFL. I believe they've won, six in a row? They're 8-4. They were 2-4. They've won 6 in a row. They've looked great. Mac Jones developing very nicely as a rookie quarterback. The defense forcing turnovers, playing great. It's your typical New England team, our Bill Belichick coach team. There's no Tom Brady. And Justin's going to mute because he's got dogs, which is kind of cool when you think about it. Let the dogs bark. We can handle some barking. Anyways, and the Bills, look, the Bills were slumping. They played a great game on Thanksgiving night against the Saints. The Saints aren't really that good, but still, the Bills blew them out. They needed that. Josh Allen looked good and everything. So you've really got the perfect mixture here for a great matchup. And the Bills are 2.5-point favorites. I'm taking the Bills, okay? Everything's shouting New England, okay? But, I still think home field is going to mean something. A Monday night game in Orchard Park, the crowd is going to be liquored up. They're hopefully not going to be too burned from jumping on burning card tables and things like that. But the crowd is going to be crazy. And I think the Bills are motivated in this game. I really think that, they know that they have to win this game if they're gonna win the division. I know they got another game against New England in Foxborough coming up in a few weeks. I get that. But right now, this is a must-win, backs against the wall game for the Bills, okay? And yeah, they got blown out by the Colts a couple of weeks ago at home. I get that. But this is, to me, it's all or nothing here for the Bills. Their season hinges on this game, and I think they pull it out. And being 2.5, they just got to win by a field goal. So I like the Bills to win and cover the 2.5. Go ahead, Justin. We'll let Robert go last on this one. You got it now.
Well, we all know who Robert's going to take. So,
of course we do.
I have been waiting all season for the Bills, their offense, and Josh Allen to click like they did last year. And, they'll put together a half here and there where they do look like the 2020 Bills, where their offense was impeccable. But then you have the first half against New Orleans when Allen throws 2 interceptions. I think he threw the first red zone pick of his career. Not totally his fault. His arm got hit on the play, but it's just, you're waiting for them to put together a complete game. And here come the New England Patriots, who that's kind of all they do. The Patriots are a well-rounded football team. They're not going to blow your doors off with some fantastic passing attack, but they don't really make mistakes. They're going to play sound defense. Belichick, as he's known for, is going to take away what you do best, which I would imagine he's going to focus on Stephon Diggs. And they're going to try and play some ball control and hope that Mac Jones doesn't make mistakes, which, I'd say for the most part, he's done a pretty solid job at, especially for a rookie. I don't like this matchup for the Bills. I know that last year seemed like obviously a changing of the guard in that division and in the AFC, but I don't know this season. I thought the Patriots would be a competent team this year. They've certainly outperformed my expectations. This just seems like the Bill Belichick revenge tour. He had to hear all last season how, look at Tom Brady down in Tampa. Look, he's doing just fine without old Bill. Goes and wins a Super Bowl. He's all happy, go lucky. We've never seen this side of Brady before. And Belichick is just stewing all season, all off season. He built that defense back up, had some solid free agent signings. Not that all of them have panned out, but some of them have. And I just think the Patriots are, kind of back to, they kind of got that early 2000 vibe. Not saying they're going to go win 3 out of 4 Super Bowls, but they're just a sound team that's well coached, and those are tough teams to beat. Don't mistake it. This is a tough test for the Bills. They're going to need to play their best game, and it's based off of how they've played recently. I don't know if they have 4 quarters of great football in them, so I'll take the Patriots.
Robert?
Well, it's interesting. I have a reputation for being quite a homer, a Bills homer. I picked the Bills to win the Super Bowl, picked Josh Allen to be MVP this year, but I'm picking the Patriots in this one.
Oh man.
So for me, it comes down to, I'll give my view on both teams here. The Bills, to Ritz's point, they have not. I think really what their problem has been is that they beat the Chiefs, one of the most complete games you could play. Great defensive performance, great offensive performance, and it seems like after that they're like, oh well, we beat the Chiefs, and it's like, well, don't we have other goals here? They lost to the Titans, and granted, they should have won that game. They were in that game, but then they get blown out by the Colts. They lose, to the dog Jaguars, for crying out loud. This is a team that is teetering, and there's plenty of teams behind this one that are in the hunt, which I don't know why we're talking about that now, but here we are, in a 17-week season or 17-game season, talking about this early. But the Bills are in danger of really falling out of it here. And I think, they have been too inconsistent this season in too many games. And I think it'll come back to bite them in the end. The Patriots, we forget, this is a team that could easily be a one-loss team. They lost to the Dolphins week 1 by 1 point. They lost to the Buccaneers, the Tom Brady, this was the biggest game, Bill was the biggest game of the regular season. They could have won that game if Nick Folk made a kick. And then, of course, there's the overtime game against the Cowboys, which, really the Patriots should have sealed the deal there, but obviously they didn't. So, this is a team that, you look at their record, you say they're 8-4, the Bills are 7-4. These teams are pretty close. I don't think they are. I think the Patriots are a much better team. A lot of that has to do with Belichick and that defense getting that back up to snuff, but also the offense. It's not the flashiest offense, but they get the job done. Mac Jones, finds the open receiver. They're able to run the ball a little bit. They put enough points on the board, and the defense does the rest. That's the classic Patriots team from the early 2000s when Brady wasn't slinging the ball around and being the star that he is now. This is the kind of football they relied on early in Brady's career, and Belichick went right back to that playbook and is doing the same thing with Mac Jones. They could easily win by double digits on Monday. I don't think this game will be close. in my opinion. I think that the Bills are.
Come on.
I know.
Here we go. You know what
know.
this is? This is just the biggest reverse jinx in the history.
I know. That's what I was thinking.
Harding's
too.
just saying he's pouring dirt on the Bills.
Yeah.
He ordered a gravestone, and now he's picking the Patriots. Come on.
Look, I really believe this. I think that the Bills, they go and rough up on the Saints, and they beat some of these other bum teams in this league. But I think when you look at how they've played since that Chiefs game, I don't think it's an accident. I think they beat the Chiefs, and it reminded me. And Chris, you mentioned this game back many videos ago, but I think it was during Emmitt Smith's holdout. The Bills beat the Cowboys in a regular season game. And I can remember being a kid, the Bills had just gotten creamed by the Cowboys in the Super Bowl that year. They would get beat by the Cowboys in the Super Bowl later that year. But it was like, we beat the Cowboys, in week 2 of the regular season, like you get a trophy for that or something. It's BS, it's a participation trophy. Okay, nice. You won a regular season game. Let's see you do it when it counts. Let's see you do it in November, December, January. Let's see you win a Super Bowl. This team, and I'm not going for any reverse jinx here. I honestly believe this based on how they've played. I think that they could be in line for a beatdown against the Patriots, because this offense seems to crumble against superior defenses, or at least top tier defenses. And then that defense just got roughed up by the Colts. The Colts gave the Patriots the perfect playbook on offense to beat the Bills. Just get a little physical with them, run the ball, and this defense will roll over and give up 40 points to you. So I am concerned about this, and I think that the Patriots will win with ease on Monday night.
Wow, that's stunning. I mean, that really is stunning to hear from you, Robert, that you think your Bills are going to get absolutely trampled on. But I mean, again, being a Monday night game at home, I really think there's professional pride here. And I know it only takes you so much, but the Bills, look, they've been rested. They played Thanksgiving, so they're going to have as much rest as you can have outside of a bye week. Okay. They're going to have 11 days between games. So they're going to be well rested, plenty of time to get ready for this thing. And hopefully they've been looking at film the last few days and everything of Mac Jones. And I still think the Bills on paper are the best team in the AFC East, and they should win this game. And being a 2.5-point spread, they should be able to win by at least a field goal. And I think that's what's going to happen. They're going to win. I'm not saying they're going to beat the heck out of the Patriots. That's not going to happen. But I don't think they're going to get trounced. No way. I think the Bills are. Let's put it this way. There's certain games that we're playing the Jags. Oh, we're going to win this one, and maybe there's a letdown. The Colts too, to a point. But you're playing New England, and if you don't show up for this game, then I think you have issues with the coaching staff that these guys aren't getting ready. Okay, because to me, if I'm a player and I'm playing New England and I haven't played well lately, and I'm in second place looking up at New England, I should be ready like a crazed dog to get on that field and lay a beat down and play as good as I can and win this game to get back in this division. So if your Bills are going to be contenders, not this year, but be contenders for years down the road with Josh Allen, this is the kind of game that they've got to come out and they got to play well and they have to win. Easy, simple as that. No excuses.
Yeah. A couple stats to mention. The Patriots are undefeated on the road this year. That's another reason for my pick. They have played very well on the road. And on the other side of that, the Bills are 3-2 at home. Not the worst record, but they have lost to the Colts and the Steelers, who play a similar brand of football as the Patriots. And I think that that's a recipe for disaster for the Bills. And that's why I feel strongly about this picking the Patriots. I think quite simply the Patriots, while their records are similar, the Patriots are, a half game ahead of the Bills in that division. I I think the Patriots are a much better team, or at least a more consistent team. You know what you're getting with the Patriots. With the Bills, they're a bit of a paper tiger. On paper, this defense, yes, they're a number one defense until they get, run over by Jonathan Taylor. This offense should be lighting people up, but you look at all the pieces and they can't run the ball enough to, keep defenses on their toes. And then, Josh Allen is making some mistakes. And I think, this is why, the Bills could very well get in the playoffs. I think that, they are certainly better than a lot of those AFC teams that are in the hunt, but this is why they're in trouble. They have some tough games coming up. This is the first of two against the Patriots. The Bucks are that right there. You lose those three games and you're in trouble, because the AFC, there's some teams with some soft schedules, and all it takes is for them to go on a run, and you're looking behind them and they're looking in their rearview mirror. So this is a big game for the Bills, but like I said, I think the Patriots are a better team and they'll win on Monday night.
Justin,
this is one of those games where, it's stunning to say, because before the season, I think people would have said the Bills from top to bottom are the best roster in football. And yet you look at it today, and I think people would say, no, the Patriots don't really have a weakness from guy 1 to guy 53. They're the better team right now. This is one of those games where you say, Josh Allen, we paid you $250 million. You're making over $40 million a year, and $150 million of your salary is guaranteed. You are the best player on this field. Go play like it. This is a game he needs to play well, and he needs to kind of win it for the Bills, because, Stephon Diggs is obviously a great player. Beasley and Sanders are, okay, kind of role receivers. The Bills don't have a great running game outside of Josh Allen. Their offensive line is not good. I think they have two great safeties, and they can generate a decent pass rush. But they also just lost their best cornerback. So this is a team that is, as we've said for the last 15 minutes, a team that's reeling a little bit. And this is a game where Josh Allen needs to win it for you. It's simple. This is why you pay your quarterback the money that you do. This is why everyone looks for the quarterback, is because he is the ultimate equalizer. So it's time for Josh Allen, like he did against the Chiefs, to step up and have one of his best games of the year, because they're going to need it.
Okay. All right, guys. I guess we'll wrap it up here. Robert, it's good to have you back. I'm not saying that we weren't, it was kind of fun with just having a duo here, not a trio, but you're back, and you're back for real next week. So we'll just have to deal with it. So
the guy misses a month and suddenly he's picking against the Bills. I mean, it's crazy.
I know. Must be the lack of sleep. He's up all night feeding the baby and everything. At least I like to think he is the one up at night, not Sarah, letting Sarah sleep and everything. That's what a good father does. Let mom sleep, and dad's up all night with the baby. Maybe it's just the lack of sleep in his mind is kind of slipping a little bit. That's why he decided to pick against his Bills.
Look, it's great to be back. Ritz, you've done a admirable job manning the ship while I was gone. Chris, I don't know what's going on with your camera. It looks like you haven't opted out of marijuana based on my view here. I think you need to clean the screen or something. It's good to be back with you guys. The beard is lovely, Chris. I think you should keep it. I think you look dignified for the first time in your life. You look like your father. I learned yesterday.
I took you the picture.
Great photo, great comparison. I think you should keep it for that reason. It's good to be back. It'll be good to be back, full time next week, and we'll take it from there. But missed you guys on the video, and it's good to be back to trash the Bills for the first time this season.
Well, maybe next time you bring the baby with you, have the baby with you, and you can show the baby on camera, because God knows that my wife and daughters love the baby. And Layla, they want to see that. So maybe. Well,
clear the smoke from the camera first, and then I'll
do you really want to expose a poor innocent child to this nonsense? I mean, come on.
Yeah. Child abuse, right? No.
Right.
All right, folks, we're going to wrap it up. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. Have a great week, safe weekend, and we'll see you next week.